Greetings and welcome to this video on JavaScript interview questions and answers. My name is Michelle AI, and our focus today is on JavaScript functions, a topic frequently discussed in front-end interviews. As we explore this subject, you will not only deepen your understanding of JavaScript, but also refine your skills for your next JavaScript interview. During the video, we'll pose a question for you to answer, followed by the correct response. We will give you 15 seconds to answer each question. Optionally, you can pause the video if you need more time. Although we will be focusing on interview responses, it's important to be familiar with the technical aspect of each topic. You can find detailed technical responses under the Functions category on our website at hellojavascript.info. So, let's get started with the first question. Can you name at least 3 types of functions in JavaScript? Here is the interview response. In JavaScript, the 3 most common types of functions include named functions, anonymous, and arrow functions. Let's move on to the next question. What is a function declaration in JavaScript? Here is the correct answer to this question. A function declaration in JavaScript defines a named function using the function keyword, followed by the function name, parameters in parentheses, and a code block in curly braces. Let's look at the next question. What is the definition of a JavaScript function? This is the correct way to answer this question. A JavaScript function is a reusable block of code designed to perform a specific task, taking input as arguments, processing the data, and returning a result. Now for the next question. What is hoisting, and how does it affect function declarations? This is the correct way to answer this question. In JavaScript, hoisting is the default behavior of moving all hoistable declarations to the top of the current scope. What is the primary purpose of JavaScript functions? Here is the response to this interview question. The primary purpose of JavaScript functions is to modularize and reuse code, enabling the performance of specific tasks with less repetition and improved organization. Let's move on to the next question. Is there a limitation on variables declared inside a function? Here is the interview response. Variables declared inside a function have local scope, meaning they are limited to the function and not accessible outside of it, ensuring data encapsulation. Let's move on to the next question. Can functions access variables outside the function body? Here is the correct answer to this question. Yes, functions can access variables outside their body, as they have access to the outer scope, allowing them to use variables declared in a containing scope. Let's move on to the next question. What is a global variable? Here is the response to this interview question. A global variable in JavaScript is a variable declared outside any function or declared without var, let, or const keywords, accessible throughout the entire script. Global variables are visible from any function unless shadowed by locals. Now for the next question. What is the modern JavaScript rule for using global variables? This is the correct way to answer this question. The modern JavaScript rule for using global variables is to minimize their usage, as they can cause conflicts and make code harder to maintain and debug. We should use local variables and function parameters to ensure proper encapsulation of data. Let's move on to the next question. Can you explain how to use parameters in functions? Here is the interview response. In JavaScript, function parameters are used to pass values into a function. They are declared in the function signature and are accessible within the function body. Let's look at the next question. What occurs if a function parameter isn't supplied during invocation? Here is the interview response. If a function parameter isn't supplied during invocation, it assumes the value is undefined within the function, which may lead to unexpected results or errors. Now for the next question. How is a default function parameter evaluated in JavaScript? This is the correct way to answer this question. In JavaScript, a default parameter is evaluated every time the function gets called unless it's undefined or omitted. Let's move on to the next question. Is there a way to check for an omitted function parameter and return a new value? This is the correct way to answer this question. Yes, you can check for an omitted function parameter using default parameters or a conditional expression to return a new value if the parameter is undefined. Let's look at the next question. Can you implement multiple occurrences of a return statement in a single function? Here is the response to this interview question. Yes, in JavaScript, you can implement multiple return statements in a single function, often used with conditional statements to return different values based on specific conditions. Now for the next question. Why is it not recommended to use multiple return statements in JavaScript? Here is the response to this interview question. Using multiple return statements in JavaScript can make code harder to read, debug, and maintain, as it increases complexity and creates multiple exit points within a function. Let's move on to the next question. Is it possible to use a return statement without a value? The correct interview response is yes, it's possible to use a return statement without a value in JavaScript, which will cause the function to exit immediately and return undefined as the result. Now, for the next question. What does a return statement with an empty value output? This is the correct way to answer this question. A return statement with an empty value outputs undefined, signaling that the function completed without returning a specific value. Let's look at the next question. What is the most important thing to remember when using a return statement? Here is the response to this interview question. The most important thing when using a return statement is to ensure it clearly communicates the function's intended output and terminates the function properly. Let's look at the next question. What are good naming practices for JavaScript functions? Here is the correct answer to this question. A recommended naming convention for JavaScript functions is to use a verb as a prefix to indicate an action. For instance, a function that retrieves a user's name should be named getUsername using camel case. Let's move on to the next question. What are the best practices for the creation of a function? Here is the response to this interview question. Best practices for creating a function include defining its purpose, using descriptive naming, adding comments, testing thoroughly, and following dry or don't repeat yourself principles. Let's look at the next question. Should there be a separation of concerns in functions? Here is the correct answer to this question. Yes, functions should have a clear separation of concerns, focusing on performing a single task, enhancing code reuse, and reducing the complexity of individual functions. Now, for the next question. What is a callback function in JavaScript? The correct interview response is: in JavaScript, a callback function is a function passed as an argument to another function and executed when a specific event or action occurs. Let's move on to the next question. What is a higher order function in JavaScript? This is the correct way to answer this question. A higher-order function is a function that takes one or more functions as arguments, or returns a function as its result. Let's look at the next question. What is a closure in JavaScript? Here is the correct answer to this question. A closure is a function that remembers and accesses its surrounding lexical scope, even when executed outside the original scope. In JavaScript, all functions are naturally closures. Now, for the next question. What is a pure function in JavaScript? Here is the response to this interview question. In JavaScript, a pure function is a function that always produces the same output when given the same input, without modifying any external state or data outside of its scope. Let's move on to the next question. What are the benefits of using pure functions in JavaScript? This is the correct way to answer this question. Using pure functions in JavaScript ensures predictability, testability, and easier debugging, and allows for code optimization and functional programming patterns. Let's move on to the next question. What are side effects in JavaScript functions? Here is the correct answer to this question. Side effects in JavaScript functions refer to changes made to data or variables outside of the function scope. Let's look at the next question. Can a function declaration be called earlier than it is defined? Here is the response to this interview question. Yes, function declarations in JavaScript can be called before they are defined due to hoisting, a process where declarations are moved to the top of their scope. Now, for the next question. What is the scope of data in a function? This is the correct way to answer this question. Data declared within a function has a local scope and is only accessible within that function. Now, for the final question. What is the purpose of the this keyword in JavaScript? This is the correct way to answer this question. The this keyword refers to the object that the function is a method of, or the global object if the function is not a method. We've now come to the end of this video on JavaScript functions. We hope that you found it to be informative and valuable. Be sure to join us for the next video, where we'll look closely at JavaScript function expressions. Thank you for watching.